Hi guys, it's Ginger. I am here with a little bit of a different video. There are, I don't know, complaints, concerns, I don't know what. It's about certain retail stores, two specifically, one in particular. Let me give you a little background information because my rant or complaints or whatever you want to call it, criticisms, don't come from someone who is unaware of what it's like to be an employee at a retail store. I will tell you, I have worked in the early part of my working career. My very first job was working at a fast food place. So mainly working at the drive-through window. So that was in high school. That was my very first job. Then I've also worked at a retail pharmacy. Yeah. And which no longer exists. It turned into something else. You know what I'm saying? Then I have also worked at a restaurant, like a higher end restaurant, somewhere in the middle, like a middle priced restaurant. I was a hostess at that particular place. Your sit down kind of, you know, $15 a person type of restaurant. I've also worked a couple of retail jobs as well. I worked for one of the places I'm going to talk about. I worked for Walmart for almost 2 years. It was about 20 years ago. But one of the complaints that I have is some of the things that have changed over those 20 years. So I worked at Walmart. I worked in the pharmacy of Walmart. And I also worked as a cashier, and had also had management have an interest in me being what's called a customer service like person. So people who are over the cashiers. Customer service manager, that's what it's called. And it's been a while. And I've also worked in a women's clothing store, a very large, well-known women's clothing store. So I've had experience not only as a customer, I'm coming from this not only as a customer, but as someone who has worked in retail before. The first one I want to talk about is a little different than Walmart. Walmart is an entirely different issue because I actually worked in Walmart, but I want to talk about the dollar store, the Dollar General store first. I really like the Dollar General store. I can find things at a little bit of a more reasonable price than I can some other places. The problem that I have with some of the ones that are around me is the cleanliness of their counters. The fact that they are constantly stocking. I mean, they have these big rolling cage things almost that they put their stock in to roll it out on the floor. And those are constantly out and constantly in the way. At one in particular. But at a lot of different places, they're very short-handed. It's not unusual to walk in there at 5 o'clock and the line be 5 or 10 deep with customers. Their counter is always gross. It looks like some kid has picked his nose or sneezed in his hand and rubbed snot all over the counter. So the complaint that I know that the dollar store is a franchise. So the complaint that I have is, doesn't the dollar store, and if you, like somebody from the dollar store is going to be watching this, but if you happen to work for Dollar General or in management for Dollar General, you can answer my question. I'm curious. You know, of course, that is something that You know, they don't wash the windows. They don't wash down. They don't wipe down the counters, things like that. When, you know, you're putting your stuff up at the checkout and the counter is nasty. And you can see it. It's most of the ones that I go to, the counter is metal. So you can clearly see these nasty smudges all over the place. And what I wonder, and it's not that I'm trying to be critical or nitpicky or anything like that about stuff like that. My question is, just because it's a franchise, doesn't the corporation have any concern about brand integrity? That's the question that I have pertaining to the Dollar General store. Do they just kind of throw their hands up once the franchisee has paid their franchise fees and they don't have someone from corporate come and check these places out every so often? I mean, most companies have regional managers, things like that. So anything like that, I put on from store manager up. You know, isn't there any kind of brand integrity with these? I mean, there's even one that I've gone to, which I'm not going to anymore because a brand new one opened up closer to where I live, and I passed by it as well. But so I go to the newer one now. But the other one that I passed, because I passed two when I'm going to and from work, I passed two. The first one has been open only a handful of years. I mean, only a handful of years. And at least twice, I'm sure it's been more, at least twice I've gone in there and they've had the front doors open, and it's because the air conditioner's busted. You know, that is not pleasant when it's 90 degrees outside and 100% humidity. That is not pleasant. There is no air circulating through that place, even with those doors open. And that older one, it smells too. And it's not even that old. That's the thing. Don't they have any kind of brand integrity? You know, concern somebody checking on brand integrity, even though it's a franchise. So, and these are all, these are not mean concerns or anything like that. I'm not trying to be critical, but, you know, mean in a critical, you know, being critical in a mean fashion. Let me put it that way, if I can get it out. So, that's basically all I have to say about the Dollar General store. You know, it is a store that I like. There's just something, I'm seriously curious about whether or not the company sends people out to, you know, check on the brand integrity. You know, you can't just let somebody be a franchisee and then as long as they're paying their franchise fees, we ain't gonna worry about it. That's just me. So let's move on to Walmart. There's a lot of things that I could say about Walmart. There are a lot of things that people have said about Walmart in terms of how they treat their employees, things like that. That I'm not going to talk about anything like that. I watched the documentary, The High Price of Low Prices, which is about Walmart. It's interesting. Some of it may be true. Some of it may not be true. I don't know. Now, the problem that I have, you know, I mean, we could even talk about the people of Walmart. All those pictures that you see online of customers and stuff like that. I'm not going to talk about anything like that. Although that is just, it's unfortunate, I guess, that we don't have the no shoes, no shirt, no service policy anymore in this country. But, you know, people who go out in public with their hoo-hoo practically hanging out, that's just tacky. But, you know, there's a lot of things that different people have talked about and criticized Walmart for. You know, and I'm not criticizing any of these companies because I'm sort of a corporate hater or anything like that. No, I mean, I have principles about certain things. After I saw that documentary about Walmart, I stopped shopping there for about a year. Not that it made any difference to them, but it was just principle. But when you live in a small town, you're hard pressed to find everything you need without going into a Walmart. So it was hard, and it cost you more money to shop at other places. It costs you more time because you have to go to different places. But, you know, it made me feel better in my mind. It was my little protest. But the problems that I have with Walmart are things that I witness as a customer and things that I know have changed as a former employee. One of the problems that I have is most of the time you go in there and you're looking for something and you can't find what you're looking for. There will be a big fat hole where the stuff is that you need. Okay? And that'll bring me to one of my points. Walmart, and I'm sure a lot of other places, use what's called point of sale reordering. And they had that back when I worked there. When I was working there and they trained us, they said, make sure that you scan everything. You know, because some people will go, oh, you know, there's a bunch of, you know, there's some white socks, some red socks, some blue socks. I will put in, you know, they bought 8 socks. Well, no, you have to scan the white socks, you have to scan the blue socks, you have to scan the red socks. Otherwise, if you just like put in 8 and scan a white sock, you're going to get 8 white socks reordered. So it's important that they, you know, scan the different colors so that you will replenish the stock that has been sold. So back when I worked there, and I have not been able to find, I looked online and I tried to find a like in-store hierarchy of management and things like that, from your floor employee up to your store manager, or even further up to your district managers and things like that. But from what I can see, I think that and what I saw, which was probably a thing from about 10 years ago, a hierarchy from about 10 years ago, and something that somebody had said on a blog, I think that they've eliminated department managers. Because when I worked there, they used to have these things that were called department managers. So your garden center would have a manager, your electronics department would have a manager, your shoe department would have a manager, and so on and so forth. So if those people would have control over ordering extra stuff, like there was a particular item in the shoe store or in the shoe department that I've been looking for, my mother's been looking for, there is a slot for it, and every single time we go in there it's empty. And I'm like, really? It cannot be that popular that it's empty every time. Well, my mother happened to catch a lady that worked there, because my mom used to work there 2 years, right around the same time, 20 years ago, years and years and years ago. She caught somebody who worked there who she knew from back then, and, you know, asked what had happened. And that lady said that basically nobody on the floor has the ability to reorder anything, you know, outside of point of sale. So if nobody was, you know, scanning those, I go like this because it's a scanning gun. If nobody scans those, they don't get reordered. So for some reason that didn't get replenished in the point of sale, but nobody there has the power to reorder that item on their own. I don't know if management has the power or what, but you know, they took that control out of the hands of the people who work in the departments. And the thing about it is, I don't even know if anybody works in actual departments anymore, except maybe in the clothing department, because they have somebody who, at least one of the ones that I go to, they have somebody, because there's several Walmarts within a 20-mile radius, 25-mile radius that I have gone to on occasion through the years. So they do have someone who sits in the dressing room area. So we know that that person probably works in that department. Otherwise, you just have people who work on the grocery side, from what it looks like to me, and people who work on the non-grocery side. So, you know, it's almost like everybody is a floor associate. I don't know. I mean, you have people who specifically work in the pharmacy and probably automotive and things like that. But everything outside of that, you're either working the grocery part or the non-grocery part. Another problem that I have too is it's inevitable that you will walk in there on a Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whenever is their busiest time, and they will have, and you know, all those places have like 15, 20 checkouts, 15 or 20 checkouts. And it's inevitable that you'll go in there in one of the busiest times and there won't be enough checkouts. Not nearly enough checkouts. You sometimes won't even see half of them open. You know, and that's a problem that I have too, because when I worked there, now I'll tell you, when I worked there, it was before Sam Walton died. And Sam Walton was the founder of Walmart. I worked there before Sam Walton died, and I'm thinking that a lot of this happened after he died, because I worked there, it was before he died, and I worked there right after he died. So I worked there in the in-between point. And a lot of things, it appears, have changed since he died. So, and the store that I worked at, the man who was manager at the time, I'm not going to name any names, but the man who was manager there at the time, who was the manager there when the store first opened, he was, what can I say? He was an obnoxious kind of guy, but he is the type of manager that I appreciate, because if the lines were starting to get long in his eyes, and it did not take much for him to think that the lines were long, he was calling people off the floor to check people out. He was calling floor staff off the floor to check people out. And most importantly, which is to me the key sign of a retail manager who is really good, who understands that customer service is of the utmost importance. Getting people checked out and out of there, because people get frustrated standing in a long line and there are other checkouts not open. He understood that getting people checked out in a timely fashion was important, and I appreciated that. He would get on a register himself. And I have been in Walmarts since then, and I've never, if I see somebody who looks like a manager on the floor, and I'm not saying I've been in every Walmart in the country, just the ones that I go around to, okay? If I see a manager on the floor, I've never seen them get on a register and check people out themselves. He's the only one I've ever seen do that. I'm sure there are other ones who do it. I've never witnessed it outside of that one man. That is a good manager. That is somebody who is concerned about customer service. Another problem that I have too is most of these Walmarts are 24-hour. The thing that's hilarious to me is it's inevitable that I'm going to go in there and there's probably going to be 3 or 4 things, maybe more, that I need that they're out of, okay? Yet they're always stocking. There's always tons of people on the floor stocking. You know, and they do not try and get out of your way either. And this is not a criticism of the floor employees. All of these are criticisms from store management up. These are mostly 24-hour stores. When I was working there, it wasn't a 24-hour store, but they would stock when the doors closed at night. Okay? So if it's a 24-hour store, your night shift should be stocking. Unless you're completely out of something and you need to replenish something, or it's an outside vendor like chips, soda, beer, who else? Those kind of outside vendors who you have no control over their schedule. So they're going to come during the day. You know, so I don't have any problem with the beer vendor stocking, the potato chip vendor stocking, the soda vendor stocking, because they have their own schedule. The store does not dictate the outside vendor's schedule. But things that are stocked by their own floor employees should be stocked at night or at some point where they are not their busiest. You know, not on a Sunday afternoon. After everybody's gotten out of church or everybody's trying to prepare for Monday, you know, don't stock on a Sunday afternoon. Don't stock on a Saturday afternoon. Stock at night. And that's all I'm saying. You know, there's some common sense things that have gone by the wayside. And nothing frustrates me more than having a hard time finding what I need, people stocking stuff in my way, standing in a long line, and here's something you may or may not know. There's a corporate policy on what the temperature is set in every Walmart. And it does not matter what region of the country you're in. I can't remember what it is, but I know it's like in the mid 70s or high 70s. For some reason I'm thinking 78. 78 may be okay in the wintertime, someplace when it's snowing outside, but it's not cool, literally, not cool when it is 98 degrees outside, 100% humidity in southeast Texas in the dead of summer, and you can't find what you need, or you're having to stand in a long line. You know, or somebody's in your way. And, you know, there's already lots and lots of people in Walmart who are there shopping. So you don't want, you know, people in your way stocking too. But anyway, so I think I covered everything. I think. But there's a lot of things that have changed since I worked there. And I think it has a lot to do with what the management, from store management up, you know, and there are certain things that used to not fly with, you know, your district manager or your regional manager and things like that. And I'm not sure that those kind of things are a priority anymore. You know, one of the Walmarts that I go to, it's not unusual to see these little orange packets. I don't know if they're caution packets or what. In an area, they're probably about that big. They're little square, orange. They almost look like little itty bitty tiny sandbags. And they're orange, and I think they say caution on them. And you'll usually see them setting by a freezer case, next to, right up against the edge of a freezer case where there's moisture. That would have never flown in the past. So I guess that's everything. You know, you may be bored to tears or something like that. I don't suspect that anybody from the Dollar General Store Corporation or from Walmart Corporation is going to see this or give, you know, a rat's patootie about what I have to say about their stores. I I have to say it. I complain about it all the time. But you know, sometimes you got to put where your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and put it out there. And I'm sure some of you have had these same problems, same concerns, and all of these things are, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying, when I criticize these companies, I'm not trying to be mean towards these companies. I don't have any beef, you know, any bone to pick with any of these companies. I let other people do that kind of stuff. I'm coming from someone who is a former employee and a current customer who sees that things have changed, or that things are strange, or didn't mean for that to rhyme. But that sort of stuff. Give me a thumbs up if you found this video informative. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, if I haven't run you off with this kind of rant video. And if you have had any experiences, or if you work for any of these companies and can explain some of these things to me, I really want to know. I want to know. I don't say these things, you know, I'm not someone who just complains and doesn't want to know if there are any solutions, or, you know, or if something's being worked on or something like that. I'd like to know, you know, why things are a certain way. Things like that. If you work for Walmart and you know whether or not that they still have department managers or things like that, you know, let me know below. Let me know any of your experiences at Walmart, things like that. And don't forget to look down below for any additional information, like my Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and things like that. And like I said before, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, so that you can come back and sit for a spell, because I do other videos like hauls and reviews and unboxings and things like that. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.